Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another Grounded TV live stream where it's going to be just justice today. Saul is not going to be attending this stream, so we will be just kind of following Pierre Poilievre a bit today. He's going to be speaking with making an announcement at 10:30 in Coquitlam there. So before that starts, we're going to be just checking out some various political news that I thought was relevant, picking through everything. There's a lot going on right now, you know. It's like CTV's putting out like 50, 60 videos a day. It's pretty insane. So anyways, just got a couple clips we're going to go over and stuff before Pierre Poilievre takes the microphone here at 10:30, and probably will start in French, I'm anticipating. So I don't think we're in a huge rush, but good morning, everybody. Good morning, Northwest Coast, Melissa, Mike, welcome to the stream. Hurricane and Autumn and Devil is Due and everybody else, welcome to Grounded TV. So yeah, we're going to be going over just various Canadian political news and following this election pretty closely, seeing what's going on. So anyways.
Crushing news for assembly lines that stretch across the Canadian auto industry.
What we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States.
With the stroke of a Sharpie in the Oval Office, the executive tariff order that Trump is calling permanent was signed. While auto parts are receiving a 1-month exemption, it doesn't appear that vehicles built under the terms
Yeah,
of the
I heard it was in his rally tonight was going to be in Surrey, but that's like a 12-hour drive from me, so there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to go to any of these venues for sure. And I didn't even know about it and like where these were going to take place until earlier this week. So if he does ever come out in my neck of the woods, if he decides to go visit rural Canada or the nearest city within like a 3-4 hour drive with me, I will go there. But I think that's about my limit, is about a 4-hour drive. I got to say for that.
The Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement will be spared.
And this is a direct attack.
Previously, Prime Minister Mark Carney has vowed not to sit down with Donald Trump until Canada's sovereignty is respected by the U.S. president. Following this afternoon's announcement, Carney appears to have changed his
I couldn't
stance.
find much about her being an actual fact checker. Yeah, I couldn't find anything about that with the whole Rachel Gilmore thing. I heard about that though on Twitter, and then I ended up looking at. I couldn't find anything on that about her actually being a real fact checker for CTV, whatever the hell that means.
It would be appropriate that the President and I speak, given the action that he's taken. I'm sure that will happen soon.
In many cases,
Trump's economic roller coaster catching up with each of the federal leaders on the campaign trail.
We know that Trump is an arsonist. He's literally burning down his own country's jobs and economy and ours as well.
Jesus.
Now is the time to take back control and relaunch our economy. So that
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw this announcement with me last night. We watched it in the stream last night. I know some of you were there, and it was weird how sentimental he got in this. But yeah, and he did a French only rally, which like I said, I thought he'd do at least 90% French, 10% English at the minimum, not 100% French, but there was like 1% English in there.
we can confront the president's unjustified threats and tariffs.
The president's on-again, off-again trade war has caused months of turbulence across the global auto industry, with many in Canada now bracing for mass layoffs.
This will have a direct impact on Canadian jobs, which means we must do everything possible as a country to defend Canadian workers and to defend their jobs.
It's great.
Just hours before Trump's announcement today, standing near the base of the Ambassador Bridge, where roughly $50 million worth of auto parts travel between the U.S. and Canada each day, Carney outlined his plan to fortify the country's vehicle manufacturing industry by creating a $2 billion fund to build out a Canadian supply chain, develop an all-in Canada network for component parts, maximize Canada's steel, aluminum, and critical minerals, while leveraging government funding.
They want this lady and Alberta to just sit down and shut up. Well, here's my response to that. I will not be silent. Alberta will not be silent.
Premier Danielle Smith.
Sorry, I'm laughing at the guy signing in the bottom here. I don't know if you guys can see him behind me here, but he's like signing "shut up," and he's just his facial expression.
with a fiery red tone in the legislature directed towards her critics for how she is handling relationships with the United States and the ongoing trade war. Smith went on for nearly 10 minutes in an unchallenged statement targeting all the opposition she has faced in recent weeks.
Yeah, that's what that was about, Hurricane. 100% it was about just showing off how great my French is. And I'm pretty sure that was his kid he was speaking to in French, showing, hey, I even speak French to my kids and they understand me in French. Like, he is flexing hard with the French. So I think, and like I said, Quebec support's a big deal. The Bloc's got like 30% of it. The Liberals have a big chunk of it right now. And the Conservatives have, like, I think last I checked, like under 20% approval rating like 20% support in Quebec. So they really need that Quebec support. So I get it.
For her meetings and comments on U.S. podcasts, Smith's Breitbart interview, where she asked the U.S. to stop tariffs during the federal election, is now a part of liberal attack ads, linking Smith and Tory leader Pierre Poilievre with U.S. President Donald Trump.
That's a couple leaps, guys. It's funny when they try and connect it with Trump, because it's like, it's just why. Like, it just seems like it just rings hollow, I think. And it does work, because there's a lot of people who I know who are dead set on voting Mark Carney because they think he's going to open up the border for America. You know, they think he's going to just go kiss the ring right away, right? Like, I just can't see it. If anything, I'm more worried about him taking too aggressive of a stance compared to Mark Carney.
Conservative Premier Danielle Smith said that Pierre...
Oh, music. Can't play the music.
The perspective very much in sync with, I think, where the new direction in America.
Smith now looked to turn the tables and attack both the Liberals and NDP.
Now, all of a sudden, it's apparently treason to talk to American media personalities that we disagree with. It is disloyal to try and persuade high-profile Republicans holding influence with the president to abandon his tariff policies on Canada. Canada has indeed been sold out, big time, and it's been sold out by the utter incompetent, self-righteous, and extreme policies of Liberal and NDP leadership across this country, including the Nenshi NDP right here in Alberta.
The Alberta NDP had a 3-minute response to Smith's statement, quick to claim Smith achieved nothing during the trips.
The Premier was busy taking pictures at cocktail parties and speaking to far-right social media influencers, but has failed to secure any actual meetings or impacts on decision makers. In fact, Premier Doug Ford is the only Premier to date who has secured any backdown from the Trump administration.
You guys got to just watch the signer, like the guy doing the signing in the corner here. He's just making me laugh so hard.
Doug Ford is the only Premier to date who has secured any backdown from the Trump administration.
He's good at his job. You know, he's good at his job, though, guys. Like that's a hard job. I can't imagine having to sign everything you're hearing, like translate that way. And he puts his whole face into it. You know what I mean? Like, it's impressive.
Cancel more trips, Smith is now off to Florida to take part in a conservative think tank's fundraiser with right-wing media personality Ben Shapiro,
whose audience is made up of exactly the people we need to persuade to convince their president to change course on tariffs against Canada.
In fact, Ben Shapiro found it funny to refer to Canada as the 51st state.
Actually, Ben Shapiro was the first commentator I heard in the main, like one of the biggest ones, to say, why are we doing this to Canada? What the hell is going on? Like, he's the first one I heard saying this. And like, you know, I'll give it that. He definitely is a right-wing commentator. I just hate when they call people like Ben Shapiro far right. I just think that's an overstatement.
Ben Shapiro insults us as a silly country. He also threatens us by saying we will be annexed. Standing up to someone making those attacks would make Albertans proud, not cowards.
The Canada-U.S. trade war is showing no signs of softening. There are still 10% tariffs on Canadian energy exports, and more tariffs are expected by
And for those who didn't know about the auto tariffs that came in yesterday, Trump, and not came into effect, but Trump announced yesterday. I don't know when they're going into effect. But American-made vehicles are going to be exempt, so it's just going to be on non-American-made vehicles now, I believe.
Americans on April 2nd.
The first day of advanced voting for the Vancouver municipal by-election got underway Wednesday, but there's criticism.
So yeah, we're just watching a couple some news here, and then as soon as Pierre Poilievre is going to be taking the stage here just shortly after 10:30 PST in BC, so we're going to be going to see what he's got to say when he goes live there.
Over how it went.
We had lines out of the building, around the building, down almost a block. It was like they didn't expect that after training people that they could vote in advance polls, that people would suddenly come out to advance polls.
ABC Vancouver says the city of Vancouver cut 98% of advanced voting capacity.
2022, they had 22 locations for advanced polling, and they were open for 5 days. And fully 38% of the people who voted in that election chose to vote on a day that wasn't the election day.
This year, there is one polling location open for 2 days.
They're trying to stuff 38% of the population of people who want to vote outside of election day all into 2 days.
ABC is calling on the city of Vancouver to...
Yeah, well, I think high turnout for advanced voting and stuff like that is always pretty good. I know this is for the Vancouver by-election, but...
better prepare for the next advanced voting day in just under a week's time.
They just need to organize it so that they can get the most number.
I just can only imagine once the actual polls open for the federal for the general election of how many people are gonna be that eager. I think we're gonna have an incredibly high voter turnout compared to the last election for sure.
People through as quickly as possible.
But Vancouver City Councillor Pete Fry says blaming city staff for lineups is totally unacceptable.
Them to sort of mischaracterize today, which was clearly unexpected, the volume of interest, which...
Yeah, it's actually a good sign. It means that this many people are interested in actually voting, right? They didn't expect this many people to show up. Like I said, that proves my point a little bit. I think people are eager for change.
Is a great sign for democracy, but it did mean long lineups. This is what we approved as a council, which is an ABC majority council, to spend $2 million and to run the by-election this way.
In a statement to City News, the City of Vancouver says this by-election has the same number of advanced voting days and locations as the 2017 Vancouver by-election. However, unlike in 2017, this year the elections office broadened access to vote by mail to all eligible voters to increase accessibility. As a result, the city has received over 6,300 requests for mail ballots so far, compared to 647 8 years ago. On the wait times, the city says they recognize it can vary, ranging from around 15 minutes to an hour, and they understand this can pose challenges for people.
If ABC want to see new resources allocated by April 1st, which I think would be fine, it will require sort of a council direction to spend more money on this.
Well, to the election trail tonight, and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre presented his platform to Quebecers, promising that if he becomes Canada's next Prime Minister, he will adopt a federalism that is responsible and respectful of the Quebec nation. Speaking at a hotel in Quebec City, Poilievre said that no initiative falling under the exclusive jurisdiction of the provinces would be implemented without prior agreement of Quebec. And he also said the Conservative government would recognize the French language is in decline and maintain all funding in support of Quebec and Francophone culture, including Radio-Canada services across the country.
Yeah, and to be fair, that Radio-Canada exemption has been on the table for a long time. They want to defund the CBC, but they're going to leave Radio-Canada alone. And he said that a long time ago. I honestly, I think when he first started rallying, when he was talking about defunding the CBC, he was saying that Radio-Canada would be exempt from it, from the defunding.
The rest of Canada has to learn from Quebec's determination and its courage to protect its way of life, culture, and identity. Quebecers do not tear down their statues, pull down their flags, or hide who they are. They sing their songs, tell their stories, and wave their flag.
And that was the only English of that entire rally. Like I said, it was maybe 1.5%, maybe 0.5% of English.
Poilievre also promised to relaunch a controversial pipeline project and terminal in Saguenay to export Alberta natural gas.
The unjustified.
So yeah, for those who missed this last night, Poilievre responded to the Trump tariffs. So he responded in Quebec City right before he went on the rally stage. He basically took a minute to give this statement. The guy's a hard worker. He's working pretty hard. I'm blown away by how hard this guy's working. But I think he is just so motivated because how long has he been waiting for this election? You know what I mean? How long has Poilievre been waiting for this election?
And unprovoked tariffs that President Trump has now announced.
I ended up going back and watching the rest later, and yeah, it was all French.
Against our auto sector. These tariffs will damage his workers and his economy, just as they will damage ours. We must retaliate and target goods and services that we don't need, can buy elsewhere, or make ourselves to maximize the impact on the Americans while minimizing the impact on ourselves. But before I go any further about these unjustified tariffs and how we're going to respond to them, let me speak to the workers in the auto sector. You're afraid right now. You're anxious. You wonder how you're going to pay your mortgage or put food on the table. You're thinking about the conversations you may need to have with your little children about whether they can register for next year's hockey or this summer's soccer. You don't know if you'll be able to stay in the same city or what's going to happen to your future. Canada will be there for you. We will be there for you. We will ensure that you have income replacement to put food on the table and money in your bank account. We'll make sure that businesses directly affected will have the liquidity they need to get through this dispute. And we will unite as Canadians to protect our affected sectors. But more than that, we need to become strong, self-reliant, sovereign, so that we can stand on our own 2 feet and stand up to the Americans. What is clear is that 10 years of economic weakness have made us more reliant than ever on the Americans. 75% of our exports go to one country. Almost all of our energy, most of our raw materials go south because we can't get them anywhere else. We need to take drastic action to build an economic fortress in Canada, able to reach other markets around the world, repealing the anti-pipeline law, rapidly building LNG liquefaction plants, mines, factories, expanding and making our
And he's been saying this stuff for a while too.
Ports functional so that we can move our goods to other places around the world, knocking down the barriers between our provinces so that we can trade with ourselves for a change.
Yeah, thanks to those that like the stream, by the way. I really do appreciate it. Thanks to all those who come in and start cheering people on to like the stream. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, no, I watched parts of the First Minister's meeting, but as soon as the election was called, I was like, well, most of what Mark Carney has done up to this point, unless he's reelected, I don't think it matters a whole lot personally. Like, it does to a point. Like, I'm keeping an eye on it, but I'm not like, we're not really making it the stream topic really or anything like that, because I don't know, everyone's just, I think, sick and tired of the Liberals having the spotlight a little bit. So the Conservatives are kind of taking the microphone back here with the recent rallies this week. I feel like, especially when it comes to the public spotlight, you have, you know, what he's doing, like his 4th or 5th rally tonight. I think he did one Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then he's doing one tonight as well. So tonight's his 4th rally this week already. So it's pretty crazy. He's a pretty hard worker, and he's doing all these press conferences and announcements and going into delis and coffee shops and doing photo ops. Like, he's just nonstop moving around. Seems like 12 hours a day, which I respect. And then, not to mention, he was in Quebec last night. He's in BC already this morning. Like, the dude's just, you know what I mean? Like, he's all over the place.
A bring it home tax cut on work, investment, home building, and energy, to make this the best place in the world, to bring back the $500 billion that Liberals pushed out of the country over the last decade.
Every party's not doing rallies like the Conservatives. Mark Carney only spoke for 28 minutes on his rally last night. Jagmeet Singh spoke for 7 minutes, and it was like maybe 40 people in a crammed office building. So, and the energy in these rallies is drastically different. And I think this is why people are, I guess, comparing him to Trump, because Trump was the only other politician I've seen that's been able to get like a passionate crowd. And I think that was one of the reasons he got elected. But I think that's why people like to kind of paint Poilievre with the MAGA brush. But I don't think it really follows through when it comes to Poilievre's policies. And yes, people can say, oh, it's just lip service at this point. But I don't know. The fact that this guy's been spouting off the same stuff for almost like how many years now? He hasn't seemed to change. He seems pretty rooted in his principles.
Then and only then will we be able to properly stand up to the Americans and stand up for
grounded, I should say,
for ourselves. Now is not a time for weakness. Now is not a time to continue on with the failures that got us into this place of dependency. Now is the time to take back control and relaunch our economy so that we can confront the president's unjustified threats and tariffs in a position of strength. We will do this for our people, for our land, for our home, for Canada first, for a change.
So let's talk now with CTV's political commentator, Scott Reed, who's joining us every morning here on CB24 Breakfast to break it down. Scott, it looked like it was all going to be foreign interference yesterday, and then
So after this, we'll be going over to the live feed from CPAC, and I'll see if Pierre Poilievre's going up a feed up on his channel for his press conference happening in just a few minutes here.
4 o'clock in the afternoon, U.S. President Trump comes out and announces these tariffs. That's got, Mark Carney going from Liberal leader to Prime Minister. How do you assess how this is going to be impacting this campaign? Because it kind of has echoes of the provincial campaign, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Look, in one fell swoop, Donald Trump has completely changed this election. And we expected and worried that this would occur, but it has now occurred. And it propels us into an entirely new phase. And, to take the politics out of it for 1 second, that phase is fundamentally, it's defined by fear. Fear that hundreds of thousands of people could lose their jobs in the auto sector and those who rely on the auto sector. Fear of economic harm, fear of economic slowdown. And so this puts enormous pressure on every single one of the campaigns. So, Carney, we see that he comes off the campaign trail. He's forced to put on the prime minister's hat, convene the cabinet, and now he has the very tricky task of figuring out exactly how to retaliate. The mood of the country is punch back and punch back hard. Donald Trump has also said that if we do so, he will make tariffs that much tougher, and he will exert that much more economic harm. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the prime minister plays his cards. Then you've got Pierre Poilievre. His campaign has been criticized often, including by me, for not really focusing on Trump and tariffs sufficiently, trying to run a campaign as though it were last year, as though we're still talking.
Yeah, but this week he has really shifted the focus over to that, and I think personally, especially going and talking to various unions. He got the support of I think what it was, the plumbers and pipe fitters and steam fitters. I can't remember which union it was in Ontario. It was a pretty big union. And yeah, he seems to be getting a lot more of support. Like the gaps in his platform seem to be being filled.
About just a basic routine political campaign of time for a change. How's he going to respond today? He's giving a large speech in British Columbia in early afternoon. This is going to test every single one of the campaigns, but more than anything, especially with next week's new round of tariffs coming after these, we're in a completely new ballgame here. We're in a completely different place, and people are really anxious. They are literally worried they're going to get pink slips and they're going to lose their jobs next week. That's what's at stake suddenly.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's focus on Pierre Poilievre's campaign. He held a rally with thousands of people, kind of showing that he still has momentum despite what the polls are showing. But every time Trump makes headlines, the person who seems to be benefiting is Liberal leader Mark Carney. So with Pierre Poilievre kind of focusing a few days ago on social issues like dental care, child care plan, he's not going to touch those things. Is that going to help his campaign now to kind of reverse his messaging on those things?
Well, he's going to have to return to the core issue. I mean, you cannot steer the ship around Donald Trump. He is the iceberg that confronts our politics and our future. So Pierre Poilievre today is going to have to amplify his language, amplify his focus on Donald Trump, and more importantly, he's going to have to begin the task, and he's only got about 4 weeks left to do it, of persuading Canadians that in the face of Donald Trump's aggression, he, Pierre Poilievre, is the right, best, most qualified leader to meet that moment. And the challenge is that every time we were talking about Trump, every time...
Yeah, it was the Boilermakers Union. Thank you. It was the Boilermakers Union. Thank you.
This threat of tariffs arises, Canadians look between the leaders and they say, Mark Carney seems better experienced, more calm, more collected, more prime ministerial, and that's what we need, a manager-in-chief. So the challenge for Poilievre is to figure out what is his specific way to get into this discussion and to out-Carney when it comes to taking on Trump.
Boy, that's a challenge too.
Yeah, I don't think that's entirely the case, though. I think what it really comes down to, with I think what people want is a strong leader, and it's who can show that they are that. And I feel like that Poilievre has a better way of presenting himself, especially on a political stage. And when it comes to playing politics, I think Poilievre's just generally better. And I think that's where this election is really going to boil down to, is getting all those undecided voters who might not have even voted last election, who are going to vote now. And they have concerns they want addressed, and they're looking to, okay, who's going to address my concerns better, right? And I guess that's what this is about, right? It's an election. It's a battle for the center, in my opinion.
And then yesterday, even in his remarks, Premier Doug Ford really praising Carney about the way he's handling the situation, really not giving any help at all to his federal counterpart, Pierre Poilievre. And again, I just see the echoes of the provincial campaign being layered on top of what's happening right now federally.
Yeah.
I think you're so right, guys. I mean, there really is echoes of the roadmap we watched in the Ontario campaign, where Doug Ford was, very often having to interrupt his campaign to go to the United States to focus on the trade war. And, in this situation, I think we're also reminded of the importance of premiers. Like, we're going to see in the middle of this election now the return of the premier. So Doug Ford, a conservative premier in the largest province in the country, suddenly seems much more aligned with Carney. Who was Carney's first call last night as prime minister? It was to Doug Ford. Does this mean that maybe we're going to see Doug Ford returning to the threats to use electricity exports as a lever in these discussions? And
I just got the Pierre Poilievre making a policy announcement on the side here in BC. We'll be segueing over to that as soon as he takes the podium here. So we're just going to keep watching some news clips. I got it on the side here, watching to see when he's going to be taking the stage. Or the podium, I guess.
Not the only premier on the map. Today, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is in the United States meeting with right-wing podcaster Ben Shapiro. And her argument has been...
Yeah, I think the conservatives liking Trump are dwindling day by day. I think a lot of conservatives at this point are kind of like... I think a lot of Canadians in general are just like, no, I went too far. It's not a joke anymore. I think a lot of people aren't impressed with it. A lot of people, I think people are underestimating, especially on the left, how many people support Poilievre, support Trump as well. Because I think Trump is nuts. I think he has dementia or he's senile. But I like Poilievre. I'm not a Republican in any way, but I am a conservative in Canada. I think those are two very different things. Whoops.
The unjustified.
So let's talk now with CTV's.
Anyways.
Premier Danielle Smith is off to Florida to try and convince American conservatives that tariffs from President Trump will be detrimental. The trip comes as the U.S. pans out its next round of taxes. One's on the auto sector this time. So let's bring in Tim Brooke, who has more on this. Tim, Smith will be in Florida for 2 days?
Yes, that's correct. Tonight, Premier Danielle Smith will be chatting with conservative podcaster Ben Shapiro at a organized...
They're just talking about it like it's so wild, like, I don't know, just the way they talk about it.
For a pro-America group called PragerU. Smith has pitched it to constituents as sort of a way to get Alberta's message out to Americans, and specifically to Americans that are connected to U.S. President Donald Trump, but well, not everyone sees it that way. We've heard from the opposition, Alberta NDP, about how they think it's an inappropriate...
Yeah, again, we're just waiting for Pierre Poilievre to take the podium here. I got the feed on the side. We still don't have anything shown up yet.
Trip. They think she should cancel it because, well, it's a waste of taxpayer dollars, according to some in that party. And Smith has also been hearing it from critics outside of politics who say she shouldn't be going as well since she first announced the trip. Shapiro has called Canada the Puerto Rico of the North and insisted on annexation. His chat with Smith follows Trump announcing Wednesday he'll go ahead with a 25% tariff on all cars and light trucks.
He has been on side with the Canadian position that tariffs against Canada do not make sense. He has a very wide circle of influence. The people who listen to his podcast are close to the U.S. president. If we can convince them, we may be able to convince the administration.
She's not going on a podcast. She's going to a fundraiser for a far-right organization. And the premier will curry favor with anyone on America's far right because she cares so much about their approval.
Huh.
Now, CTV News has asked the province how much this trip will cost taxpayers, but we didn't get a clear answer on that. We do know, though, Smith will not be paid for this appearance, Jackie. As you mentioned,
it's just like they don't really have much. Like, I think Smith's got a point, right? Like, if that's the way she's looking at it, I don't see her as being a traitor because of it. I just think it's an overstatement. Like, you can raise some eyebrows who she's talking to. Like, I don't think Ben Shapiro is a bad thing to go on at all. I think that's the Daily Wire is pretty big. Like, it's no joke. Like, it is a huge circle of influence. Like, I get it. But anyways, we'll get off the Danielle Smith stuff. Just give me a second, guys. I'm just gonna still waiting for Pierre Poilievre here to take the podium. We'll open up the feed. There's not much else going on, so I'll open up the feed now. You guys can just see it. Just give me a second. Yeah, like Mark Carney's actually going live at the same time, but we're gonna watch Pierre Poilievre. And yeah, there was Scott Moe's press conference from earlier, but it's like 37 minutes, so I don't really want to watch that whole thing. Yeah, well, to be fair, no other premiers are being invited, right? Like, I just think it's certainly plays to her base. Well, that's the thing is I feel like people also like, I don't know, I just don't see that as her base. I just see like, I think her base is a lot more older people who are a lot more quieter, who just want that more traditional approach to things, I think. And they're just, I think a lot of the parties that are in power currently got in power as results of this ongoing culture war. And I just think it's just, I don't know. I feel like I want to get away from it. And I feel like reducing all of Daniel Smith's supporters to just far right people or people who like Trump or people who like, you know, this, it's like, I don't think that's really true. Like, I think there's a very small group of people in Canada that actually want to be taken over by Trump. Yeah, and arguably she's fighting for her province too, right? Like, she's putting Alberta first. Like, and I think that's kind of what she's supposed to do as a premier, right? I think that's what most people would want their premiers to do. Like, I have David Eby as my premier, so I'm not very happy with my premier. Like, I'm very like, oh, he's gonna invoke emergency powers. Okay, what else has he done for us? Oh, this, like, I didn't vote for him personally. I voted for the other guy, but John Radstad didn't get in office. And they pretty close election though in BC. It was like a 44-47. It was 44 seats for the Conservative and 47 for the NDP. So very close election. Yeah, like, I don't know, like, personally, I don't know if I want Danielle Smith as my premier either, for sure. I'm just saying, like, I think she like she has a point, and she should be allowed to go on an American media tour without being labeled as some kind of extremist. I think that's just ridiculous. So, and I think, like, when we get so dramatic and we just like lose our heads in these situations, it just, I don't know, I think it discredits the whole argument. But yeah, we're just waiting for this feed to start. I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to talk about, any questions you want to ask. I'm all your guys right now. Just gonna be chatting with the chat until this starts. Wish we could have middle of the road in BC. Yeah, that's what I mean, right? Is like, I thought we were gonna kind of get that with the Conservative United merger, but then the Conservative United merger isn't going super smooth last I looked, and now we have like 3 independents in BC, so it sucks a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I just think I think the federal election still will make a big difference on the direction BC is going to go in. And I think the direction most of these provinces are going to go in. I think it seems like most of the premiers, even the ones that are like liberal and everything, like, they're a lot more centered and rational than Trudeau's liberals were. So even Wab Kinu's NDP is pretty, like, a little bit more centered than like the federal NDP. You know what I mean? Like, but, you know, the NDP traditionally, like, you kind of expect them to be further to the left for sure. Like, that's what the party was built on. It just sucks in BC because, like, we've been dominated by the NDP for so long. And, like, between John Horgan and now we have David Eby and it just, I don't know. If we only get announcements today on Trump, it'll be a lost day in this election. Yeah, I don't think that'll be happening though. I think we'll be getting more things happening today. I think they're both trying to keep it positive, because I think that's what people want. People want hope. They want change. They want positivity. They don't want to hear that we're screwed and think about the potential ways this whole situation could go bad, right? But I don't know. I have faith it's not going to get out of hand, or hope, I guess. Yeah, calling her a traitor is too much. It's a very strong word, but I don't feel like she is on board with the whole Canada team vision. Yeah, but that's the thing, right? If she's still going to cooperate with the federal government but disagree with them, I don't think that's a problem. I think that's like, oh, okay, like, I disagree with you, but this is kind of what I think a lot of the liberals from Trudeau's administration were missing, right? They weren't able to be like, hey, like, I disagree with Trudeau, but I guess I got to support anyways because he's part of the, like, they just ignored it and acted like, if anything, would just try and make his ideas sound better. You know what I mean? And that was kind of my problem with it all. And that's that's kind of how it comes across too with some of this stuff. Like whenever we use like such strong language like that, I just think it ends up nowhere good. And I hope we can leave that behind in the Trudeau era, because I think everybody saw how that can just sour society pretty quickly. Canadians are more worried about Trump than they are about the last 4 years, and I think that's true. I think people are genuinely worried about Trump, and I think around majority, if I had to guess, I think under 7% of Canadians actually want to become the 51st state. I think most people do take pride in the fact we are Canada. We're the true North, strong and free. We're not America. And not to say America's bad. I think we wouldn't have our success and our even like some parts of our government to a degree, some structure I understand is inspired a little bit by the States compared to the British parliamentary system. I know we're definitely way closer to the British parliamentary system in every way. However, I'm just saying that I think that the States' influence has influenced our culture and our society in a very positive way. And if we can take that influence and, that idea or ideology and apply it to our way of life and our culture, I think we can be a really strong nation on the world stage. And I think we can also be kind of an inspiring culture and a country people can be proud of. You know what I mean? Like, I'm tired of hearing, I don't know. I've never not been proud to be Canadian. I think even with Trudeau as my leader, I'm still proud to be Canadian because this guy doesn't represent me. This guy doesn't represent every average day person. This guy might be our leader. He might have formed government, but he does not represent me. If I didn't vote for him, he doesn't represent me. That's how I look at it. So to me, it's like, I don't know. Cost of living is still the biggest concern of Canadians. Facts. Canadians better remember what Libs did to us during the 2020s. Yeah. To me, it's not even just the Liberals. I think what happened is everyone got scared. Everyone got swept up in everything and they did what they thought was best. But, I just don't think the best decisions were always made. But hopefully we can learn from it. So if we ever get faced in that situation again, we're going to make better decisions. And I think the economic effects of all those shutdowns and just the geopolitical crisis that happened, it's taken a lot of people from other countries at the same time while we're having all these issues, like incredibly low productivity because of that whole shutdown. If you just think back to all that stuff, hopefully we never do that again, because I hope we've learned our lesson that the economic effects can almost be worse than what you're trying to avoid, because, the economy is it's our lifeblood as a society. With a bad economy, we have a bad way of life usually, right? So it's the better the economy is, the happier we're all going to be, I think. So, but anyways, we're still just waiting for Pierre Poilievre to take the microphone here. Kerry, she's Premier of Alberta. She has to protect Alberta first, the rest of Canada when possible, and she cannot negotiate federal changes that beyond her station, beyond Team Canada. Hindsight is always 20/20. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, with that's the thing, right? As long as she's not trying to make deals on Canada's behalf, I don't think there's anything wrong. If she's going to go talk and represent Alberta and go say, hey, this is what Albertans think, this is how they feel about this, or this is what people are telling me. And if Albertans disagree, they can speak up about it too, right? They can speak up, and it's very easy to get a lot of attention with a powerful message these days. So I feel like if someone that felt really cheated by the way Daniel Smith was representing them in Alberta, they could go and challenge that as well, right? It's just I don't know, whatever happened to that, right? Whatever happened to just taking on the system within the system instead of just trying to rip it down and complain about it and say someone's a traitor and they don't deserve to be in the system. I just think this is the toxic ideology we got to get away from. But anyways, we're just waiting for. Yeah, this is gonna take a bit longer. I think we'll go over and watch Scott Moe's press conference from earlier while we wait. This is taking too long.
To other areas, we're off the track. It's Canada and methane emissions. Many times, I'm aware of no other net zero oil company operating anywhere across North America or anywhere on Earth for that matter. Our methane emissions in the oil and gas sector have dropped some 72% since 2015. I'm not aware of another industry globally that has a record of dropping their methane emissions by some 72% just in the last decade. Potash, 35% of the world's potash comes from this province, and it's produced with half of the emissions of our next largest competitors in other areas of the world. We also produce about 15 to 20% of the world's uranium, high-grade uranium, high-quality uranium, to be used in clean nuclear power in many other countries around the world, including it's Canada and the United States of America. And we want to produce more of that product as we have a number of additional uranium mines that are going through and waiting for their federal regulatory approval so that they can begin construction sooner.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the feed opened up 15 minutes ago, and usually I think they're probably just, like I said, I guess I shouldn't expect these things to start on time. I think Great Dominion likes to give me a hard time about it, but we're just waiting for Pierre Poilievre here. We're watching this announcement from Scott Moe in Saskatchewan this morning. He's going to be talking about how he's trying to completely scrap the carbon tax in Saskatchewan, including the industrial carbon tax.
Rather than later. We have a net zero copper mine that is under construction to provide minerals or elements not only of today, but elements that are crucial to powering our future right here in our province. I would say you point back to the opportunity we had at COP28 in Dubai to highlight not only all of these industries, but to highlight the industry that really is the spinal cord of the economy in Saskatchewan, and that is our agricultural industry, where the Global Institute for Food Security released a study that pointed towards the comparison of how our agri-food products are produced in Saskatchewan relative to our next 6 or 7 largest competitors globally. And what they found was our canola and our wheat are produced with a 65% lower carbon content than the next largest 7 competitors around the world. Peas and lentils were off the charts with respect to just how sustainably produced they were here in Saskatchewan, and by extending the technology and the innovation that we're using to other areas in North America and other areas of the world, we are producing more sustainable food due to the efforts of Saskatchewan companies. So as Canadians, where do we find ourselves today? As Canadians, we find ourselves in the midst of a federal election campaign. And given that the 2 major federal parties and their leaders have realized the very harmful impacts of the carbon tax, the harmful impact to families, to our investment environment, industrial investment environment, and ultimately the harmful impact in reducing the number of jobs and opportunities that Canadians have, and more generally, the harmful impact that it has to our economic growth in not just this province, but across.
So in the bottom left there is just the feed for Pierre Poilievre's press conference, so you'll just see it as it comes up.
The nation of Canada, we see each of those leaders now announcing plans to eliminate at least some of the cost of the carbon taxation policy that we've been subjected to for, which will be 6 years, this April the 1st. So in that light, and taking that cue from the federal leadership candidates, Saskatchewan is taking the lead in our nation by reducing the industrial carbon tax rate charged in our province to 0. The industrial carbon tax rate, or the OBPS, is the quiet carbon tax. It's the carbon tax that we as Canadians don't always see, but we certainly all pay. We're in a very uncertain time as well as Canadians. We are facing as Canadians potential tariffs and some implemented tariffs in the steel and aluminum industry already today from our largest trading partner, the United States of America. We also in this province and throughout the Midwest, the prairie provinces are facing today the 100% tariff on canola and peas and pork and seafood in our Atlantic areas, the Chinese tariff that's been imposed due to a policy decision, in fairness, by our federal Liberal and supported by the NDP governments, a policy decision to protect the EV industry, the Canadian EV industry, which is at this point in time not employing anywhere near the number of people that are being employed in the canola industry and the other aforementioned industry. So what we are doing as a province is we're taking very decisive steps to ensure that our industries in Saskatchewan are more competitive and to protect the jobs today in those industries and protect the jobs that we want to attract in those industries into the future. And most importantly, protecting Saskatchewan families from inflationary costs due to unnecessary taxation. The decision that we're making today will foster an economic environment where industries can feel confident to make further investments into our province, and I would say into our nation, to increase the production that they have, to add value to the production that they have, to protect the jobs that are here today, and to protect the very families that are creating income from those jobs in industries across Saskatchewan. As I mentioned earlier, Saskatchewan is producing the most sustainable products that you can find on earth today. Those products are benefiting not only Saskatchewan families from an economic perspective, but by extension, very much are impacting Canadian families in a very positive way. And so we want to create an environment where we can create more of those sustainable jobs, Canadian sustainable jobs right here in Saskatchewan, making our province a carbon tax-free province will provide us with the opportunity to do just that. So our ask on behalf of, I would say, not only Saskatchewan residents, but largely on behalf of Canadians, is that all federal leaders running in this federal election would support the position that we have put forward. Removing unnecessary taxes where you can, attracting investment.
Morning, everybody. Scott Moe. We're just watching Scott Moe's press conference from this morning about him announcing getting rid of scrapping the carbon tax completely out of Saskatchewan, including the industrial carbon tax. We have on the bottom left here, Pierre Poilievre making an announcement in BC very soon, and we'll be segueing over to that as soon as that comes up. You guys can see the same feed I see in the bottom left there. So you'll see whenever that opens up, we'll segue over to that. But we're going to watch this in the meantime. I'm curious to hear what reporters have to ask Scott Moe here on this and how he can go about doing this if there's currently a federal backstop for it and how that works. He's calling for the support of the next leader to support him in this action, but I don't think the Liberals would based off their recent rhetoric.
And creating more Canadian jobs and more Canadian opportunity in areas like Saskatchewan, where we have the most sustainable food, fuel, food, and fertilizer that you can find on Earth. And our ask of the federal governments is to allow provinces to regulate in this space, regulate in this area without imposing their federal backstop. This will further strengthen, and I would say provide us with the opportunity to further unite as Canadians by supporting the economic diversity that we have in various provinces and various regions of Canada, and will provide us then collectively with an opportunity to grow economically and to grow as Canadians. This is an opportunity that I would say that the federal leadership candidates have to unite Canadians further, to make life more affordable for each and every Canadian and each and every Canadian family. Thank you.
Do you explain why this measure was in last week's budget? Because it is a taxation measure as such, and I guess what effect it might have on this year's budget. I don't think it's described by the opposition, so there is a vote for the effect.
Yeah, so what we are doing here today is deferring the OBPS program, and we feel it'll have an immaterial effect on the budget, but we will have a consultation process with industry on how we would be able to exit that program. We have always stood, I think, from day one against this tax. We don't think it is in any way an environmental tax, but ultimately is, preventing in many ways investment and enhancing the inflationary costs that we are experiencing as Canadians. So we've always been against it and looking for ways, including taking it to the Supreme Court of Canada, supported by 8 other provinces and one opposition party in our effort there. What we are doing here today is really taking our cue from federal leaders as we find ourselves in a national election campaign. You've seen, the 2 main parties, both federal leaders have came out and made decisions with respect to reducing the consumer carbon tax, and one party, the Conservative Party, has went further and said that they would also reduce the OBPS tax. Taking that cue, what we are asking all leaders to do is to be clear on what they would do with the OBPS tax and ask them to put that in the provincial scope of regulations. That's what we've always asked for. We in Saskatchewan said we would probably reduce that to 0. Other provinces may not. Other provinces may freeze it at a current amount or some select amount. Other provinces may actually have it escalate over time, depending on the industry and depending on the opportunities that they have. Herein lies our, we're not only diverse as people across Canada, but we're diverse economically in how we generate our wealth. And I think that's very obvious right now as we have tariff discussions from multiple countries. So really, as we've always been against this particular tax, we think it's ineffective, we think it's inflationary. However, we're really taking our cues from federal leaders over the last number of days as we see them starting to zero out this tax in different ways. What we're talking about today, the consumer carbon tax, is there's decisions that have been made there by both leaders. The OBPS, or the heavy emitter tax, is the leaders need to be clear on their position on that. This is the quiet carbon tax. This is the one that you don't always see, but we all pay.
Okay, but what budget effect will it have? And I guess I'm curious as to why a budgetary item would be taken, the cue would be taken from another political event as opposed to what the budget process is, which is describing our needs. So I guess we need to know how it's going to affect this year's budget. Has a pretty narrow surplus, and where do we go from here? Where do we make up the money? A lot of this, I think, is going for things like SMRs in the future?
Yeah, I wouldn't assume that there's money that needs to be made up. What I would say is that this is a deferral, and we'll consult with industry on how we exit the program. And so some of those details would come out, days and weeks into the future when we understand what that exit would actually look like. But the important thing, and I think what this means to Saskatchewan residents, and if this was adopted by all the federal leaders that potentially could win, would mean the same for Canadian residents, is you would pay less, starting with your power bills. And it's very evident, and Minister Harrison can speak to how that is very visible in Saskatchewan, but it's not visible in all areas of Canada on your power bills. But it also would affect the gas price. It also would affect your grocery price and everything that we purchase. This, again, I say, is the quiet carbon tax. It's the carbon tax that we don't all see, but we certainly all pay. Do you want to just explain how Saskatchewan is a little bit different with how it is viewed in our power bills?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much, Premier. This really is this is the hidden carbon tax. This is the shadow carbon tax that, I think has been advocated by some for it to continue to be higher. What we are doing and what people are going to see on their bills as of April the 1st, Saskatchewan ratepayers, SaskPower customers are not going to be paying that carbon tax portion that had been broken out on their SaskPower bills. So that is for individuals, for households, for businesses, and this has a real impact. I mean, we're talking hundreds of dollars per year, depending on power use for either households or for companies. A good example actually is Everest is a great example of this, where we made an announcement about a week and a half ago, a company that is facing a 25% tariff. That because of that tariff, there are literally hundreds of jobs in the city of Regina directly at stake, thousands indirectly at stake because of the importance of that industry. A 25% tariff. This is going to save that company, for example, millions of dollars per year in compliance payments, which is going to put them in a position to continue employing the hundreds of people in Regina and the thousands that are in that associated industry. We've been working closely with the company on how we speed up purchases from the Crowns. We announced that a week and a half ago. Some of you were at that announcement and covered it.
Here, guys, we're just waiting for Pierre Poilievre to take the podium here on the bottom left corner feed. I'm just going to go make a cup of coffee quickly. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm going to leave this play while we do that.
It was very well received, and I think you're going to see later today, as we go forward, economic stakeholders talking about the impact of this for them, whether that be individual employers, whether that be households, whether that be other stakeholders in the government realm, organizations like SARM, for example. This has a direct impact on the ability of our ratepayers, for SaskPower, our customers, to realize genuine savings. And it's a position that we've taken for many years. And I think that is probably going to be the most obvious indication initially. People are going to see that line on their SaskPower bill, which is federal carbon tax, is no longer going to be paid.
When it comes to OBT as a line item in the budgets under electricity sector revenues, it comes in at $346.6 million. So if we're deferring that, we have a $12.2 million surplus. Does that mean that we now have a 300?
Yeah, there's the entirety of the conversation, and this is why we need to engage with industry on how we are going to exit this program. Herein lies the opportunity. Pardon me?
But if we no longer have that source of revenue, you said that there's going to be an immaterial impact. I'm just hoping you can flush it out.
And again, I'll have to talk to you about that once we have discussed with industry on how we actually would be able to exit this program. The much more material impact on reducing this, eliminating this hidden carbon tax, or at least providing the opportunities for provinces to regulate in this space, is lower cost for families. That's the immediate material impact that Canadians would notice and that Saskatchewan residents would notice. Secondary, but equally important to that, was being an improvement in the investment environment in this province. Minister Harrison had spoken to the impacts on a company like Everest, that employ many not only USW to workers directly, but indirectly many across the province. And again, Evraz, with their electric arc furnace, is producing some of the most sustainable steel that you can find on Earth, and recycling cars from not only Western Canada, but the Midwestern U.S. as well. Integral part of our North American economy in what they do. And so we'll have more details on those discussions in the days and weeks ahead. But what we're announcing here today will have a very real impact on Saskatchewan families starting on April the 1st. Saskatchewan in the investment environment and protecting the jobs that are here today starting on April the 1st. And as we find our way through the number of weeks consulting with industry on how we can actually exit the program, then we'll have more details on that.
Can you expand on that? Because trying to take the form of an exit fee, a transition fee to industry is something I don't know how this would work.
I don't understand the question.
Someplace along the line.
He's so based.
The revenue within budget, that's it out for to $380 million, whatever it is. The opposition has another number, but I don't know if it's correct. Would industry be required to pay for some of those costs related to this?
Well, I think you get back to the very function of costs across government, and in Saskatchewan, we have a power company that is owned by the people of this province, and our very goal and focus has been to deliver reliable, affordable power. We're making all of the decisions that we can in this space to ensure that is the case. Yes, as we find our way through the next number of decades, how we generate our power, how we deliver our power is going to change, and we're going to need more of it because we're a growing province and our electrical needs are higher, whether that be because we do see some things like electrical cars coming into our centers, or whether it's like we see happening throughout the province with a new potash mine being built, or a new uranium mine being built, or a new copper mine being built, or a new canola crush facility being built. And so there is an entirety of the conversation here on just what our future looks like in this province and what our future looks like as Canadians from an investment attraction environment. And I would say that this quiet carbon tax doesn't help that in any way. And we're asking the federal leaders to allow provinces to regulate in this space. That's the ask here today. And I think, in fairness, that ask, if it was granted, you are going to see a much more robust investment environment across this nation, and collectively a much more robust investment environment in Canada. There is an opportunity here for federal leaders to unite Canadians even further. Second to that, and I would say equally, if not more important, is you'll see a greater degree of affordability for Canadian families. In Saskatchewan, you'll see it on April the 1st, but across Canada, we could see it as well if we eliminate not only the consumer carbon tax, but allow the provinces to regulate in the space of the output-based or the heavy emitter carbon tax.
Further, I think people would really like some clarity on whether or not this will result in a deficit. So if I'm saying yes or no, we're going to have a deficit budget now because of this.
Listen, we have a balanced budget or a $12 million surplus that's introduced into the legislature, and we have every intent on delivering that throughout the year.
Oh, whoops. What the hell was that, guys? Sorry, that was the Pierre Poilievre feed coming on. That was that beep. Jeez. Like, woke me up. Holy. All right, guys. Sorry about that. We'll mute that and leave it in the corner. We'll wait for him to take the podium. Jesus Christ. Sorry about that, guys.
3, 4, podium 1, 2.
Yeah, leave their mute their sound checks. Jeez. Gave me a heart attack. I was like, what is going on here? I was so just sucked into what Scott Moe was saying there. So I apologize, guys. Anyways, we got Pierre Poilievre in the corner there. Once he takes the podium, we'll make that the main feed. We'll keep listening to Scott Moe here while we're waiting.
You're saying you're no longer going to collect the fee. However, you don't have that revenue anymore. How are you going to operate at a surplus then?
And we're going to have those details in the days ahead. As we go through the consultation with industry. As we go through the consultation with industry, understanding how the dollars flow, not only through Saskatchewan, but how they flow, even through other levels of government and through other industries across Canada. There is a much larger and much more complex answer to what the exit of this policy and this tax, a hidden tax on Canadians, will actually mean. All of it positive. If we're able to regulate it at the provincial level, as I said, in Saskatchewan, we would look at bringing that to zero, and are going to do so on April the 1st. In, across Canada, you might see a different answer to that. You might see the freezing of that rate. You might see some might even be escalating it. Some might escalate it in certain industries, but not others. And herein lies the opportunity for us as a very diverse, even culturally, nation. But also diverse economically, to make very good regional decisions that are in the best interest collectively of all Canadians. There's an opportunity here for both of our national leaders that can become Prime Minister to be very clear in this space.
Why not have those consultations first? Why not have the answers available for people before announcing this policy change?
Well, I think we're taking our cue from the federal leaders as they start to back up on this policy to, not even go to zero as part of their policy, but turn the regulatory authority over to the provinces. Provinces know best when it comes to how to regulate largely natural resources, but also how to ensure that in their region of Canada, we're making for the most affordable environment for families that we represent. And I think, in fairness, we've done well over the last number of decades, not just the decade and a half government. I'd say a nonpartisan statement. We've done well in Saskatchewan in ensuring that we are the most affordable place to live in Canada, and we want to continue for that to be the case. I would say that more recently we've also done well in attracting investment, and this is going to even increase those opportunities if we're able to make that investment environment more attractive.
You have a plan and an understanding of how this is going to work first before making this announcement, before making this decision?
Well, I think it's morphed over time. As when this first came in, you'll remember it was going to go to $50 and would never go higher by the federal government's comments. Then they announced that they were musing about it going substantially higher, and then it was going up to $170. And herein lies, I think, some of the direction that we would take from industry is on, what does this look like going forward? For an investment environment, what does it look like going forward to ensure that you're competitive? And for us, our interest is to preserve the jobs and opportunity in Saskatchewan communities. And so that is the discussion that we're going to have with industry, is how could we exit this program in a very positive way for Saskatchewan people and Saskatchewan opportunity. What we find ourselves in today, and why we're here today, is really taking our cue from the federal leaders who have all made steps, taken steps in backing up, at least on the consumer side. But what we're asking for them to do is to not even back up on the quiet carbon tax, the heavy emitter carbon tax, but allow provinces to regulate in this space.
Yeah, like basically just asking for the federal government to back off on this, which I don't think is a big, I think right there, if you're saying that we can't agree on it as a country, and we are really diverse in terms of what we want across the country, maybe there should be more agency up to the provinces in areas like this when it comes to implementing such a tax that does have quite a bit of an effect. And arguably people are saying, well, the reason for the tax, I get the reason for it, but to say I disagree with this tax doesn't mean I'm some kind of that I'm a climate change denier. And now I'm a crazy person you shouldn't listen to, right? That's where I think we kind of lose our heads again. And it's okay, they're arguing about the strategy here. You know what I mean? They're arguing about, is taxing the people and our industries the best way to go about this? Because I think it really comes down to how those funds are managed and what have we really seen that's improved since these taxes have been implemented. I can tell you that does not work in BC. Well, yeah, no, that's true. But BC itself, we've had our own carbon tax for how long? Doesn't matter anyways for us, right? If the federal government wants it or not.
No, I think the question is very pertinent today.
Yeah, I honestly think Pierre is going to win because I just think he's a better politician. I think Mark Carney is just not very practiced, and already you can see he's done I think one rally so far this week, and he spoke for 20-something minutes. It was like a Biden rally. That's what it reminded me of, watching a Biden rally. I'm not going to lie.
Canadians should know where each leader is on the quiet carbon tax, on the heavy emitter carbon tax. Are you going to give the regulatory authority to the provinces and allow them to regulate in this space? Are you going to set it to zero? Are you going to freeze it? Or are you going to increase it indefinitely over time? That's an important question, I think, that Canadians want to know the answer to as we find our way to that election day in Canada. Very important question. We have so many challenges as Canadians today. We in Saskatchewan are facing 100% tariffs on some of our largest agricultural products. Deep impact into the Saskatchewan economy. We in Saskatchewan, like other Canadians, are facing, the potential threat and are already have in place tariffs.
That's their feed getting all blurry, by the way.
On steel and aluminum, and that's why we've made decisions to advance some procurement in the Crown utility space to support our steel industry in Saskatchewan. But very much as Canadians are facing, a time of uncertainty. This is an opportunity for federal leaders running to be our Prime Minister to be very clear with Canadians on what the costs they're going to impose on Canadians are, whether the Canadians can see them or not.
No, we already effectively dictate where the money from the OBPS goes. There's a tech fund that gets $7 million. There's the Clean Electricity Transition Grant that gets $140 million. And then there's the Small Modular Reactor Investment Fund that gets another $140 million. So we already effectively get paid where that money goes, and it goes into things like modular reactors, like etc.
Yeah, and we're suggesting, as we find our way through time, and this is what we're going to consult with industry, is what is the impact of paying those dollars on the competitiveness of your industry? What is the opportunity for additional investment in your industry if that fee isn't there? And so this is exactly the answers to some of the questions that we have, is if we are going to exit this program, make Saskatchewan industries more competitive, our investment environment more attractive, and save Saskatchewan families money, what does that look like going forward?
If I could, Premier, if I could too.
Sure.
Maybe I'll just add to that answer as well. What you're forgetting is that the hidden carbon tax, the industrial carbon tax, is the national government forcing customers of SaskPower to pay $100+ a month per household, millions of dollars per year for individual companies. At SaskPower, we can manage without the industrial carbon tax in place. We can manage what our future is going to look like at SaskPower without any of these resources. This has been forced on us, and it's being forced on taxpayers to pay literally hundreds of dollars per year because of the Liberal government for very little benefit. So that is what we are talking about here today. That is going to be gone. That is going to be off your bill. If you are a SaskPower customer, you are not paying that charge that you have been paying now for 6 years, which is about, at this point, well over 10% of your bill right now is the federal carbon tax. That would be going under the current plan up to about 25% in the next few years. That is no longer going to be paid by individuals here in this province. Anybody who is a customer of SaskPower, whether you're an individual, whether you are a business owner, a small business owner, whether you're a large business owner, you are not going to be paying that carbon tax. That is what people are going to see today and going forward.
I'm just going to maybe add that, at least that helps answer your question a little bit as well, is federal leaders do need to be clear, because in Saskatchewan on our power bills, it's one of the few places where this hidden carbon tax is actually not hidden. It's very evident on your power bill. And that's in excess of 10% of your power bill today, roughly. Federal leaders need to be clear on what that is going to look like for Saskatchewan residents, and it's hidden on other products, but what it's going to look like into the future. And to go up to $170 a ton, it's going to look like, 24, 26% of your power bill in years into the future. It's also on food, it's also on fuel, but it's just not evident in those products. And so this is the hidden carbon tax. We don't all see it. You do on your power bill in Saskatchewan, one of the few places, but we certainly all pay it. And so what we are asking the federal government to do is to, allow us as regional leaders, as provincial leaders, to regulate in this space. That's always been our ask. And I think largely you'll see agreement among other provinces for this ask as well. Alberta, for example, they had a carbon tax implemented before the federal government did even, and it was simply around a tech fund that was flowing, dollars back into certain investments in that industry. It should be governed as a natural resource application where the provinces are actually regulating in this space. And it might be different across the nation, but it will be more advantageous for the residents that live in that province, and it'll be more advantageous for the investment environment that we're trying to provide. And therein lies, I think, collectively as Canadians, it'll be more advantageous and strengthen our national economy and our national opportunities.
There's a small modular nuclear development as well, because part of the OBPS was looking to both that and get that into what is that going to do in the future of small modular?
Well, that is you know, the answer to that question is years out. As you know, we've made a commitment to extend the life of the current.
Thanks to those who like the stream, by the way. We're just waiting for Pierre Poilievre to take the podium in the bottom left there. He's, I guess, starting a bit later than I anticipated for sure, but I guess he's a pretty busy man right now. So we're going to keep that open in the meantime. We'll just keep watching this. If anything else of more importance comes up, I will throw it on the screen. We've listened to quite a bit of this Scott Moe announcement so far, like 27 minutes of it. Just waiting because I thought I thought we were going to get through like 5 minutes of it waiting for Pierre Poilievre, but yeah, it's been like 27 minutes now.
Capacity we have to generate power here in the province, and that's simply focusing on affordable and reliable power for Saskatchewan residents and the industries that are here today and the industries that we're attracting. Again, this is a very much a connected conversation to, you know, the pressures of tariffs, the opportunities that we have as we move forward in the investment environment that is here, that does and is somewhat dependent on our access to reliable power. You're seeing those challenges in some other areas of North America and Canada as well. So we, you know, very much have, I wouldn't say shifted our focus, but have increased the focus into ensuring that first and foremost, we have reliable, affordable power for Saskatchewan residents and the industries that are here today and the industries that are going to operate tomorrow. We are also going to continue to lower our emissions in how we generate that power over time, but we're going to do it in a sensible way that isn't going to triple or quadruple the electricity costs that we have. That isn't what Saskatchewan residents want, is a quadrupling of the power rates that they have. They want the lights to go on when they flip the switch, and that's what we're focused on.
Okay, well they went to another feed by accident. Oh, that's all they did? What, they just cut him?
A lot of anger. She's, I think, one of the strongest advocates we have in Canada right now.
This is a good point. Good point in time to segue over to the main feed here. Give me a sec, guys. We're going to be having and switching cameras here. There we go. So yeah, we're just waiting for Pierre Poilievre to take the microphone now. Should be any minute. Saul is not going to his rally in Surrey. Saul is not really like, I don't think he would. Like, I think he, like, even if he could right now, I don't know if he would for sure. Like, he might just to hear him out, but he's just dealing with some stuff right now. So he's not going to be going there for tonight for sure. He's also like the liberal commentator of Grounded TV, and I'm the conservative commentator. So if anyone was going to go, it would be me, but he's like a 12-hour drive away from me. So it's like, I don't know, like hard time convincing my wife on that one when I didn't know about it till 2.5 days ago. But with if he does come out my way or just closer in any way, I'll probably go out and see him because I want to see. I'm hoping he's got some more, just a little bit closer stops to me than Surrey. But it's funny because I didn't grow up very far away from where this is, so. It's interesting. If I was able to afford to live in my hometown, I would be going to see him today. Yep. Waiting for Pierre Poilievre. Should be taking it the microphone pretty quick here. Feed's been open up for almost an hour. So usually at the latest, they usually start an hour after the feed opens up. Ideally, like if the feed's opening up at 10:30, I'd expect 11 o'clock they're going to start speaking. But I guess with just election time, they're trying to cram a lot into very little time with very short notice. So especially this week, thinking maybe it'll get a little bit smoother as the election goes on, or it'll get more chaotic. But I guess depends on. It doesn't seem like there's that many people there, but who knows how. This is like an announcement, so this isn't necessarily a rally, right? This is just he's probably at a workplace making this announcement. Looks like your generic kind of. I wonder what kind of building this is. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, now's a good time to ask. If you have anything you want to ask about Grounded TV or just questions you have about recent political events and news, if you're just tuning back in for the election and you're not sure what's been happening this year so far, feel free to ask any questions I'll do my best to answer them. And if we don't know the answer, we'll look it up and try and figure it out for everybody. All good things is worth the wait. Go blue, James. Yeah, no, like that's the thing is, I definitely think there's a lot of momentum Poilievre's got in his campaign, and like even if the polls are accurate, I just think they're not. It doesn't really matter to a degree because like the polls, like in terms of accurate, I mean like no one's screwing with the answers. You know what I mean? It's just literally like I don't think it's still like 4 weeks away from actually voting, right? Like April 28th is when we can actually vote, right? From what I understand, that's when voting opens. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. What's your favorite color, Justice? I like a very specific kind of lime bluish green. I'm just kidding. I'd say probably green and blue. I'd say I kind of like those colors pretty equally. Like if I got to choose any colors, like they don't look very good though. You know, like a blue and green room doesn't look very good. So I never really paint those colors, but I'm hoping for a conservative supermajority. It doesn't make any sense to vote any other party. Yeah, like to me, I think at this point, especially if Mark Carney is going to have the same cabinet, I don't think it makes much sense to vote for not Poilievre unless you just don't like Paul, like unless you're just hell bent on not voting for Poilievre, right? And I think that's where Mark Carney's trying to cash in on. He's like, I'm not Poilievre. That's his campaign, right? And I think typically when politicians run those kind of campaigns, they very rarely win. I think that it's more of a desperate style, I guess, to a degree, because it is hard to dig up dirt on Poilievre. He's been in the public eye for so long. You know what I mean? Like most people, and the Trudeau government was digging up dirt for how long? Constantly. Like, you know, it's just, I think he's a much harder target to hit, especially for the Liberals.
Mic check, podium mic check, 1, 2.
Oh, doing another sound
5,
check.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Check 1, 2. Podium 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Podium check 1, 2.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's not much else going on at the moment besides Jagmeet Singh. So I don't want to. I think I'd rather just wait for Pierre Poilievre at this point. I'll be right back. I'll just leave this up, and yeah, be right back. Okay, he should be taking the podium any second now. Thanks again, everyone who liked the stream. Appreciate it. Yeah, well, both parties are kind of promising to lower some taxes. It's just, yeah, definitely the conservatives are being more aggressive. However, that is a deficit, right? Tax cuts are deficits, so he really will have to follow his dollar for dollar value if he's going to actually put us in a better position. If he's going to be promising all these tax cuts at the same time, and I think he's doubled down on defunding the CBC. And I think he's also mentioned selling off Crown land previously. I know he's has a couple ways he's going to be not like, I don't know, like, I guess making some financial decisions for us. And that's the thing too, is like people can criticize him wanting to sell Crown land, but wasn't it Mark Carney who sold Petro-Canada to a private corporation? Like, I think he was the one that privatized, like, correct me if I'm wrong on that one, guys. But yeah, Jay Meats rally. Yeah, we could go over and just peep Jay Meats rally real quick while we're waiting. Like, here we'll go over. We'll go check it out for a sec.
No company should think they could sell here in Canada.
This isn't a rally. This is an announcement. Sorry, not a rally.
If they
I don't know why I said rally earlier. I meant announcement.
have a footprint here in Canada. So if they get rid of their footprint, they're not creating jobs here. They're not selling in our country. They're not selling in our market. We also have to make it very clear that as a nation, as a country, we're going to take care of our workers.
Okay, I can't do this. Let's just...
Donc, à cause de cette
this hovering anxiety that people.
What's this announcement about?
In Windsor.
It's a policy announcement.
You're out speaking to people here. How worried are you about just how potentially devastating these auto tariffs could be?
Okay, well, whatever.
Yeah,
it just seems like a NDP announcement. We'll go back over to Poilievre's. Rather wait for Poilievre and listen to that at this point. Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Is like, I think a lot of people are just frustrated with the way we're going, and they just want change. And this whole election is about who's going to bring more positive change for the average everyday Canadian. And I think a lot of people believe Poilievre has the ability to do that. And, you know, I know some people think Mark Carney does, but I just, in terms of the way the majority is going at this point, according to the polls, it's the Liberals, but according to just like my own, like, I guess because I'm in Western Canada, it might be a little bit different. But what I get, you know, talking to people is most people are wanting to give Poilievre a shot here than give the Liberals another term. Like, I think, like, it would be insanely impressive if Mark Carney was able to win this election just because of everything, all the damage Trudeau did. Like, people still, like, you know, like just the, like how much he's surged up in, like, the Liberals surged in the polls after Trudeau just shows you how much he was hated, right? And I think that's what a lot of people underestimated, is how much people hated Trudeau, and we're just so sick and tired of him. But I think at this point, like I said, like, that's one thing I can't understand is, if you're voting in Mark Carney, aren't you not voting in like the same cabinet, the same ministers? Like, there's very few that have changed. Only 6 have really changed so far that I've seen. So I think that was the last time I looked at it, I think a couple days ago. But freaking Poilievre out there socializing and crap. Yeah, I don't know what he's doing. We're waiting for him. NDP needs a leadership review, PPC too. Yeah, I think so too. Like, I don't think as a party leader you should be allowed to live in the States for half the year. That I don't get. Like, and not to mention, it's kind of frustrating me because he's actually getting some support and he's splitting the vote on the Conservatives, and he's gonna help put the Liberals back in power, you know, in the long run. Because like, there are people I think who would vote for PPC that, you know, I might not agree with, but they would be way more likely to vote for the Conservative, I think, if they had to vote for one of the two main parties. And if you really don't like the Liberals, I'd suggest you vote Conservative if you want change, because to me, I think that's the only way we're going to be able to get out of this. Voting for the other smaller parties, I think isn't going to help us as a country in the long run. Even if we like the ideology behind those parties, I think it's just kind of a distraction in what we really need to be focusing on here. So we can easily get the deficit down to 25 billion. Yeah, well, 61.7 billion. I hope we never see a deficit like that, unless, you know, it gets like 100 years from now and inflation's caught up to that point, or like whatever. We should be at a healthy inflation rate at that point. Because if inflation was actually at 2%, I think we would get there eventually. But it would be nice to see deficits not that high in the next few decades, because that's insane. 61.7 billion for one deficit is pretty insane, or for one report. Once again, it'll be over by the time it hits Ontario-Manitoba border. It's either going to be a blue tidal wave, or who knows. Yeah, that's what my father-in-law always said. He says, who cares? Elections decided back east, when we live on the West Coast. So that's why he says that. And it's just funny, because I guess he's always thought that. And a lot of people, like, he still goes out and votes, but a lot of people already don't really feel like their votes matter in Western Canada, because there's so much less people here. Like, what is it, like the Windsor corridor or whatever? Like, I forget what it's called, has like it's like an area of Quebec and Ontario together, has like majority of the population of Canada in that one area, from what I understand. I forget what it's called. The Quebec Windsor corridor is the most densely populated area and heavily industrialized region of Canada. Yeah, there's 18 million people in this one, just in the Quebec City Windsor corridor. 18 million out of 41 million people live there. That's insane. Literally almost half the population of the country in one area. Like, it's insane. Yeah, I would prefer, if we were going to have any kind of government party that's doing similar things like the DOG is doing, I'd prefer actually voted officials running that, not people like Jordan Peterson. Like, I wouldn't mind Larry Brock being involved in that. Sure, someone who's a bit of a hard ass, who's got a history and resume of scrutinizing corporations and whatnot, things that, I have no problem with that. But at the same time, I just think that having someone who's an unelected official be a part of that is always not a good look. This crowd, is this a crowd representative of Surrey? Well, honestly, yeah, like, to me, like, I've actually worked a lot in the Surrey area and the Fraser Valley area. Yeah, I feel like it's pretty diverse there. Why does it matter, really? I guess you're missing some of the older population. It's a lot more younger people. But this could just be the crowd at one workplace, right? Or it could just be some people who are volunteers at the local riding and stuff like that. There needs to be a combination of civilian and elected officials to balance. Yeah, but like, it's the people, like everyone at like who has like, top level security clearance and a lot of authority, I think should be an elected official. In that sense, if you're going to have some kind of, and I guess in our system, you'd have like a parliamentary committee that would be responsible for doing that stuff anyways, right? That's how our system would work. I think if you were going to implement something like that, like for it to go by the Canadian system or work through the system, it would be done through just parliamentary committees. And I think it would be nice to see what the Conservatives could get done with those committees if they weren't being roadblocked constantly. Like, think about how many of those committee meetings were just filibustered. You know what I mean? Like, just absolute waste of time. Like, imagine if those meetings were actually productive. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy. I don't know. I don't think it really matters personally if they've. This is a conservative announcement, anyways. I don't think they're too key. I think they're just taking the people there. They're not worried about having a diversified backdrop. Like, it's just. Yeah, well, I just think the committees weren't able to get anything done, right? Like, they just got stopped so much. And like, arguably, I know some of them were a little bit of a waste of time, but there were some that, like, especially with the Randy situation, like that situation, the fact that other liberals were trying to cover that up, I think was really greasy. And that's why I have a really hard time with the Liberal Party. because of that kind of stuff. And I have yet to see any of that kind of behavior from this Conservative Party yet, and hopefully never. But we'll see what happens when they get into power, right? Like that's the thing. I think that's kind of like, to me, if it's a matter of hiring someone for the job between Carney and Poilievre, I'm going to give Poilievre a shot here. But I just think that if Poilievre isn't, because he comes in making so many big promises, if he doesn't follow up with all those, like, he's going to damage his career, I think, a lot. And he won't be able to, like, I don't think he'll hold office for very long if that's the case. Yeah. Well, that's what I mean, right? It's like there was a, like, what, it's funny how everyone just kind of put that, all those committee meetings, all those investigations, conflicts of interests, ethical breaches, like everything that we've seen, like, you know, some liberal ministers do. Like, it's just like, it's just crazy to me. Like, you're not granted, it's not the entire party, but the fact that Mark Carney hasn't booted those people out of the party, or there hasn't been more of an initiative to not let those people run again, like, that's what's blowing my mind. Because I haven't seen, like, I guess I should double check that if they're actually running again. Is Randy Boissonneau still an MP, or still running again? Sorry, I should say. Oh, no, he did not. He's not running. Okay, good. Well, that's good to see that at least they got, you know, the act, like, you know what I mean? Like, that guy's literally a criminal in my mind. Like, he's just, I can't believe it took them this long to, I guess he had to announce it. Maybe it was up to him, but who else? Think of here. Khalid, is she running again? Doesn't sit, nothing saying she's not. Seems like Miss Khalid is running again. Yeah, just a handful I can recognize from committee meetings and House of Commons proceedings that I just thought their behavior was just ridiculous. So it's those people I would never want to see in government again. And if voting for Mark Carney means, like, you're voting for them, like, I just think I don't understand how he thinks he's gonna win. Yeah, no, I think we can trust the courts. I think that's fine. I think trusting the courts is fine. I think we got to stay within the system and, you know, keep an open mind, but not so open our mind falls out. Anyways, finally he's taking the stage, podium. And watch him start in French now, after all that, guys. He's in BC, so you better not.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you very much everybody. Merci d'être là. Quel plaisir d'être parmi ces travailleurs exceptionnels dans l'une des grandes entreprises, grande dans le sens de fierté, de loyauté, de patriotisme. C'est vraiment la promesse du Canada qui nous amène ici aujourd'hui. On parle d'une entreprise qui est fondée il y a 55 ans par un grand Canadien qui malheureusement n'est plus avec nous. Il a décédé à l'âge de 92 ans, Tony Paris, qui a fondé l'entreprise, créé ça. Il est arrivé au Canada avec $50 dans sa poche.
Mark Works, she will not be running again, it says. As of 5 days ago, she announced that.
Donc, félicitations, Angelo.
You know what? He's just desperate for Quebec's vote. That's what I gotta say.
Avec la promesse du Canada. Malheureusement, je dois commencer en m'adressant encore aux tarifs annoncés hier par le président Trump. Ces tarifs sont injustifiables et ils vont
If I didn't jinx
nuire
it, he wouldn't have started in French. All right, Hurricane. All right.
de la frontière. Aux travailleurs qui ont peur de perdre vos emplois, on est avec vous.
Like, he's got the least support in Quebec, from what I understand, province to province, like an 18% support. So I get why he's doing it.
Les entreprises avec l'équité nécessaire pour vous garder en place et supporter la continuation de votre travail. Vous voulez travailler, vous voulez garder votre chèque de paie, et je suis d'accord avec vous. Nous allons mettre en œuvre un plan pour mettre le Canada d'abord, afin de protéger les emplois et en plus ramener la production ici. Mais j'ai un message pour le président Trump. Vous menacez le meilleur ami des États-Unis encore une fois. C'est une grave erreur. Oui, ça va nous nuire au court terme. Ça va vous nuire aussi au court terme. Mais à long terme, mon message pour le président Trump, c'est le suivant. Dans les prochaines 4 années, sous un nouveau gouvernement conservateur fort, le Canada aura complètement relancé son économie.
Hour and 40 minutes late. At least 40 minutes late, we'll say. We'll give him the first half hour set up. 40 minutes late, starts in French. Thanks, Pierre.
Un nouveau gouvernement conservateur va mettre le Canada d'abord en construisant des pipelines, exploitant nos ressources naturelles, commerçant entre les provinces et améliorant le libre-échange avec d'autres pays outre-mer. Vous avez pris avantage de la faiblesse de notre économie, M. Trump, mais cette faiblesse va être remplacée avec la force. Et d'ici 4 ans, nous allons être assez forts pour défendre nos intérêts et nos amis à travers le monde vont pouvoir acheter nos produits et nos services. Nous allons être un pays souverain, autosuffisant et fort. On va vendre notre pétrole, notre gaz naturel, des mines, la forêt et la pêche. Le monde entier a besoin des ressources du Canada et on va vendre ces ressources ailleurs. Sur un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va mettre le Canada d'abord pour faire changement, le Canada va prospérer et les États-Unis seront isolés. Ce qui m'amène à la raison pour laquelle je suis ici aujourd'hui. Je veux dire un grand merci à Apollo Sheet Metal. Vous êtes une superbe entreprise canadienne qui emploie des travailleurs canadiens remarquables depuis 55 ans. Ça remplit le cœur avec la fierté. C'est vraiment la promesse du Canada, qu'un immigrant peut venir ici avec 50 $ dans sa poche pour bâtir une entreprise.
Yeah, I would bet that not one person there understands what he's saying right now.
Que Tony est là, il est fier.
Except for his wife and his team.
Angelo, il est là. Angelo, je suis certain que votre père est fier de vous et de votre travail, ce que vous avez bâti de son héritage. Et on veut recréer cette belle promesse canadienne où n'importe qui, de n'importe où, peut accomplir ses rêves en travaillant fort. Donc, le choix pour les Canadiens dans les prochaines élections sera
Yeah, the rally is tonight at 6 p.m. PST, and I will be streaming it, by the way, guys.
La criminalité a augmenté et notre économie est affaiblie face aux États-Unis. Est-ce que les libéraux méritent un 4e mandat? Ou est-ce qu'il faut un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va mettre le Canada d'abord en coupant les taxes et impôts?
At least I know this rally tonight will be all in English.
Ici au Canada et faire face aux Américains avec la force. Vous savez qu'après les 10 dernières années, le Canada est affaibli et on voit que le système est injuste.
In Surrey, BC is where the rally is taking place.
Quand les initiés riches...
That's what it says on the conservative event schedule on their website.
Pour l'investir à l'outre-mer et éviter les taxes ici, ils payent moins. Mais en même temps, on voit que les Canadiens qui investissent ici dans notre pays paient plus. Les gens comme ceux qui sont ici avec moi aujourd'hui sont punis pour le crime d'avoir investi dans leur propre pays. On a appris cette semaine que pendant que les Canadiens qui travaillent fort doivent payer plus de taxes et d'impôts des libéraux, M. Carney a discrètement placé sa fortune de sa société à l'abri des taxes et les impôts du Canada. En même temps qu'il conseillait Justin Trudeau sur la politique fiscale, et qu'il était supposé de représenter les intérêts du Canada, il a caché ses investissements aux Bermudes. Les libéraux forcent les Canadiens de payer plus au Canada lorsque M. Carney paie moins aux Bermudes. C'est comme ça que le soi-disant fiducie sans droit de regard est un problème.
Well, you know, this isn't the rally. This is his announcement, right? So I get this is televised. It's a one-time announcement. He's going to do it in French and English. I just thought maybe he'd, being in BC, would start in English, maybe, but I guess he just doesn't. He has the same protocol regardless because he's trying to win Quebec support.
Si il en profite de l'expulsion de l'investissement outre-mer. M. Carney sait toujours ce qu'il a comme investissement. Il doit partager cette information avec tous les Canadiens. Moi, je l'ai fait. Hier, les médias m'ont demandé si je pouvais partager mes investissements. J'ai dit oui. J'ai fourni toute la liste des investissements que j'ai.
Honestly, if this is what it takes to win, I'll accept it. If this is going to help us get a conservative majority government and get Quebec support, by all means, talk all you want in French, Pierre.
À l'étranger, on a besoin d'une réduction d'impôts pour ceux qui ramènent de l'argent dans notre pays, pour monsieur et madame tout le monde. C'est pourquoi j'annonce aujourd'hui une partie de mon plan pour mettre le Canada d'abord. En tant que premier, je vais lancer le CELI bonifié, le Canada d'abord. Ça fonctionne comme ça. Évidemment, nous avons le CELI que les conservateurs de Stephen Harper ont créé, qui permet aux Canadiens d'investir maintenant 7 000 $ dans des investissements sans taxes et impôts sur les dividendes, les gains en capitaux, l'intérêt, etc. Ça va rester pareil. Mais ce qui va changer, c'est que les Canadiens vont pouvoir ajouter un autre 5 000 d'investissements aussi longtemps que ces investissements sont dans les entreprises et des actions canadiennes. Ça va libérer des milliards de dollars d'investissement ici. Ça va ramener l'investissement dans les entreprises qui peuvent dépenser ça pour les machines, des usines, des autres outils nécessaires pour engager les Canadiens et nous
Oh.
L'argent va affluer.
Yeah, I hope we're done with the snow here. So we got a dump recently, and I was just like, really? Are you kidding me? And then it warmed up to like 5 degrees.
Vont générer des taxes et des impôts. Et ça va être ici au Canada, pas aux États-Unis, pas aux Bermudes. Prenons comme l'exemple un des Canadiens de gros bon sens derrière moi, Sean Shikibai. Il m'a dit que cette mesure lui permettrait d'épargner plus facilement pour sa retraite, tout en lui permettant de mettre
See, it
son
sucks
argent
because it
ici
looks
au
like it's
Canada.
going to snow. I can see the clouds. I'm like, oh no.
Envoie les emplois aux États-Unis et ailleurs, on va les ramener ici au Canada. Après une décennie perdue des libéraux, avec le coût et les criminalités en hausse et notre économie sous l'emprise des États-Unis, le Canada ne peut plus se permettre un 4e mandat libéral sous un chef faible et déconnecté de la réalité comme M. Carney. On a besoin d'un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va mettre le Canada d'abord pour faire changement et qui va couper les taxes et les impôts, donner le feu vert au projet de ressources naturelles, ramener la production et les chèques de paix au Canada pour qu'on puisse confronter le président Trump et les États-Unis avec la force. En tant que Premier ministre, je vais rétablir la promesse du Canada que chacun qui travaille fort peut réaliser ses rêves avec une belle maison sur une rue sécuritaire.
Well, you were more north than me, Northwest. How are you able to do that right now? I guess the inside, yeah. This is where you get started, but for some reason I thought you were more north than I am.
Everyone.
Oh,
it
here
is
we go.
great to be here at Apollo Sheet Metal, a great Canadian success
Apollo
story
Sheet Metal? That's so funny.
Symbolizes the Canadian promise.
I had a job interview there once when I was young.
55 years ago, an immigrant from Abruzzo came here, the great Tony Paris, with $50 in his pocket. He decided that he would use his skills as a sheet metal worker to go out on his own and start a business. And here we are a half century later. His brilliant son, Angelo, and now his kids are working here as well. How old is this little guy here? It's it's Marco, and Marco is then going to be taking over as CEO next year. So, his daughter Sophia. This is good. What an incredible multi-generational family story of entrepreneurship. This is the Canadian promise right here. Let's give them a big round of applause. They were just telling me about their incredible products, the heating and cooling systems they use. They even let me put in some of the parts a moment ago. The insulation. I put the insulation, and then after the fact, thought maybe I should ask if this is fiberglass. I'll be scratching myself for the rest of the day. Turns out it's their insulation is made out of recycled jeans. So I've committed that in 10 years, when I beat these things up, I'm going to send them in, and you can use them for insulation. But what an incredible group of sheet workers, and your local union is doing a great job of fighting for your wages. But I understand that this is a company that works very closely hand in hand with its union partners to get great wages, a safe workplace, and get things done. That is the Canadian way. But before I go any further, I'm once again, like all Canadian leaders, forced to address yet another attack by President Trump against our economy. Here he goes again, attacking his closest neighbor and America's best friend, with new tariffs that will drive up the cost of living for American consumers and drive down American wages, while damaging a historic friendship, the best trading relationship in the world. My message to President Trump is knock it off. Stop attacking America's friends. Start trading so that we can once again become richer, stronger, and more secure on both sides of the border. That is how we will have the money for stronger military and stronger borders to secure our continent against real threats and real enemies. We will never be the 51st state, but we can once again be friends with the United States if the president reverses course on these disastrous tariff threats. But I have a further message for President Trump. If you decide to go down this road, this is what's going to happen. Yes, you'll do damage to us in the short term, but we will fight back and we will build back. Within 4 years of a new, strong, conservative government, Canada will be completely rebuilt. We will rebuild our economy. We will not be reliant on the U.S. anymore, and the Americans will have lost the greatest trading partner and friend they ever had. A conservative government will build pipelines and LNG plants, aggressively promote mines and other resource infrastructure that has been blocked for the last 10 years. We'll have new overseas trading partners. We will knock down inter-provincial barriers so that we can trade with ourselves. We will send our goods to our friends on other sides of the oceans of the world. We will cut taxes and speed up permits so that we can sell our oil, gas, mining, lumber, agriculture, fisheries, manufacturing, small businesses and large businesses alike. The world needs our resources and our expertise. If you, Mr. Trump, don't want them, the rest of the world does. Under a new conservative government, we will put Canada first for a change. We will be a nation that is strong, self-reliant, standing on its own 2 feet so that we can stand up for ourselves and stand up to the Americans. America, Mr. Trump, will be isolated and alone, which brings me to the reason why I am here today. It's great to be back here in beautiful British Columbia. I'd like to thank, as I said, Apollo Sheet Metal for having built this incredible business and hosting me here today. We want to bring home the Canadian promise that allowed Angelo's family to build this incredible business from scratch. Canada needs more of this, and we will have more of it. We need a Canada First plan to bring home our investment, and that's why the choice in this election is so important. After the lost Liberal decade of costs and crime up and our economy down under America's thumb, the question is, can we afford a fourth Liberal mandate in power? Or is it time for a new Conservative government
that will put Canada first for a change by axing taxes, greenlighting resource projects, bringing home our investment and jobs so that we're strong enough to stand up for ourselves against the American threats and in favor of ourselves. But unfortunately, we've been weakened as the tax system now rewards corporate insiders that move their money out of Canada to avoid paying Canadian tax, at the same time as it punishes patriotic Canadians who invest in our country. You can probably guess who I'm talking about here. This week we learned that while hardworking Canadians were paying more Liberal taxes, Mark Carney moved his corporate assets to Bermuda, a tax haven, to avoid paying his fair share. At the very time he was advising Justin Trudeau in favor of higher taxes here, he was busy shielding Brookfield assets in Bermuda, dodging the same high taxes Liberals make Canadians pay. Carney claims that it's just because he knows how the world works. Well, what he knows is how to work the world's system against our people here in Canada. To Carney, taxes are something that the little people have to worry about, while globalist elites like him can always escape the bill. He says he has his income in a certain blind trust, but it's not blind to him. He knows exactly what's in it. It's just blind to everyone else. After he cheated the tax system to avoid paying his fair share, he now wants Canadians to blindly trust him. Yesterday, the media asked me if I would act, put my words and actions in the same direction, and release all of my investments. And I'm happy to report that I've done that. Every journalist who's asked has gotten a list of all the things I invest in. And as I said, I invest in Canada. I invest in Canadian companies, Canadian stocks. I brought my investments home after President Trump began threatening our country. And we need to see if Prime Minister Carney is willing to do the same thing. He needs to come clean about his offshore dealings. And we need a government that will stand up for Canadian taxpayers, Canadian workers, and the Canadian economy. It's time to put Canada first for a change. Instead of rewarding elites who take jobs abroad, we need to reward patriotic Canadians who bring their investment home. And that's why I'm rolling out today a part of my big Bring It Home tax cut. As Prime Minister, I will bring home the Canada First TFSA top-up. Here's how it works. You know, the previous Conservative government created the tax-free savings accounts that allow you to put aside up to $7,000 every single year. And then your growth is all tax-free. That won't change. What will change is that under my government, you will be allowed to contribute another $5,000 every single year, as long as that money is invested in Canadian companies. So this will bring billions of dollars of investment into Canadian companies who will then spend it on factories, equipment, tools, wages, and making our economy self-reliant and strong. Our economy has been starved of investment. In fact, Canadian workers get only 55 cents of investment for every dollar an American worker gets. The investment per worker in America is 28,000 American dollars. In Canada, it's about 15,000 American dollars. So the American worker has been getting more tools and more technology, and that's why our wages have been falling behind. We need to encourage investment in this country by changing the rules to make them fair, and not for the wealthy, not for the elites, but for the retail working class investors. This will bring money rushing back into Canadian businesses who will hire more people and pay more taxes in Canada. This is, we have, for example, Sean, who's behind me somewhere. I don't know where Sean went. Sean was here, or there's Sean. Sean was telling me he's in real estate, and he'd love to be able to set aside more money. Perhaps, I don't know his exact situation, but perhaps he sells a rental property and wants to put the proceeds aside, and he wants to make sure that those investments go into Canada. This would give him the ability to put that in a Canada First tax-free savings account that would boost investment in Canada while boosting the retirement that he has so richly earned. He told me that this would allow him to save for retirement more easily, while at the same time allowing us to put Canada first with his investment decisions. Mr. Carney sends jobs south, I'll bring them home. And unlike the Carney Liberals, we will put Canada first. After a lost Liberal decade, with costs and crime up and our economy down under the American thumb, Canada cannot afford a fourth Liberal term. Under a weak and out-of-touch leader like Mark Carney, we need a strong new Conservative government that will put Canada first for a change, boost Canadian investment, unleash Canadian resources, create Canadian jobs, and make us self-reliant and sovereign. As Prime Minister, most of all, I will restore the great Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where hard work gets you a great life on a safe street, protected by brave troops under a proud flag. Canada first. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much.
All right, we have questions next. Yeah, his net worth's only $5.3 million. He owns a few real estate properties, from what I understand.
Thank you very much.
2 or 3 houses in Ottawa. What? That's easily $5.3 million.
We will now go to questions. Please say your name and outlet.
Good afternoon, Mr. Poilievre. JP Tasker from CBC News.
Yes.
Nice to see you. Your party had a 25-point lead in the polls in early January, and now every major pollster in the country says that you are trailing Mark Carney and the Liberals. What went wrong? What did you do wrong?
This is CBC asking the question.
We'll wait for Canadians to make the choice on Election Day. And that choice will be this. After the lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime, and the economy down under America's thumb, do the Liberals deserve a fourth term in power? Or is it time to put Canada first for a change? With a new Conservative government, they will axe taxes, build homes, unleash resources, and bring home the jobs the Liberals have pushed abroad so that we can stand strong on our own 2 feet against the American threat. That is the choice that Canadians will have to make in the final analysis. Remember, the Liberals have the same ministers, the same MPs, the same strategists, and they're repeating the same promises that they've been making and breaking for 10 long years. We know the result. Here in BC, for example, Vancouver is the most expensive housing market in the entire world. In the entire North America, it's the third most expensive in the entire world. It now takes 100%, almost 100% of pre-tax income for the average Vancouver homebuyer to make monthly payments on the average home. That's mathematically impossible. And as Mr. Carney admitted, that was the case before President Trump ever brought in his tariffs. By electing the same Liberals who have weakened our economy and driven up costs and crime, those problems will only get worse. By contrast, we're presenting a real Canada First plan to turn things around. In addition to the Canada First TFSA top-up, we're going to take GST off new homes so that you can save up to $65,000 on the purchase of a new house. We'll incentivize municipalities to free up permits, speed up approvals, and cut taxes on buildings so we can add more homes. We're going to lock up the violent criminals with tough new laws that will make British Columbians safe again. And we're going to put our country first by approving the resource projects Liberals have held back for the last 10 years of the lost decade. That is the choice that Canadians will face, and I have full confidence that they will make the right one. Thank you.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup. Oui, merci beaucoup de votre question. Après la décennie perdue des libéraux, le choix est le suivant. Est-ce qu'on devrait donner aux libéraux un quatrième mandat?
Yeah, he was in English until 2 seconds ago, and I was just repeating in French. But like, it's also him and Anna's net worth together because they're married. It's $5.3 million. They own a few rental properties. Anna bought her first house when she was in 2012. She said that, like working for Parliament. Like they've actually got like they're like upper middle class, but they're not like having dinner with royalty like Mark Carney was, like, or having pictures of Ghislaine Maxwell, even if he wasn't on the flight list.
Dans les élections, et j'ai pleine confiance aux Canadiens de prendre le bon choix. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. And I want to invite, before I take the next question, I want to invite our candidates up here today. We've got Mark Dalton, why don't you just say a quick hello, introduce yourself very quickly. I'll take some more questions. Go ahead,
this guy.
It's great to be here with Pierre. I'm Mark Dalton, member of Parliament for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Great member, go ahead.
Morning, everybody. My name is Ian Black. I'm proudly the candidate for Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam.
I'm Paul Lambert. I'm the candidate for the Port Moody-Coquitlam riding, which also includes Anmore and Belcarra. Thank you.
Right on. Great to see you. Thank you. A great conservative team.
Thank you. We'll go to the next question.
Janice Clue, Tri-City News.
Yes.
Our municipalities are struggling to pay for growth.
Mm-hmm.
How will you help them with the infrastructure?
So first point is we're going to have a one and done rule. Right now, there's so much bureaucracy in getting approvals for infrastructure projects, so many layers of approvals that have to go through. When we had the Great Global Recession, the American economy collapsed. Our government in Ottawa at the time had a one and done rule, a one-page application form, one environmental approval. And the result was we were able to build 23,500 projects from concept to completion in under 2 years without a single environmental problem identified by the Environment Commissioner. That's what we have to get back to, so we can build more quickly. Right now, municipalities are swimming in bureaucracy to get their major projects approved. The second thing is that I will incentivize municipalities to speed up permits, free up land, and cut development charges to build 15% more per year. And if they do, their federal infrastructure allotment will go up. So the more homes they build, the more federal transfers they will get. This matches growth with money, and it ensures that the fastest growing municipalities will get the most growth in their federal contribution. That's one of the ways we can encourage cities to open up construction and make housing more affordable for our youth. En français aussi? Merci pour la question, très important. Maintenant, les municipalités sont entachées avec énormément de bureaucratie. Ça prend des années et des années pour faire approuver des projets qui sont nécessaires, des ponts, des autoroutes, etc.
I've been saying this whole time, I don't care if they take each other's ideas. I think it's good for the Canadian people. If something's gonna benefit the Canadian people, and I want it anyways, I don't care if they're both spouting it off on it. If they're both gonna push it forward.
Une feuille de papier dans les applications. C'est comme ça qu'on a pu compléter 23 500 projets dans moins de 2 ans, sans aucun problème environnemental identifié par le commissaire à l'environnement. On va le faire encore. Mais aussi, on va inciter des municipalités d'accélérer les permis, libérer les terrains et couper les taxes sur le développement afin de pouvoir ajouter davantage de maisons pour nos jeunes. C'est ce qu'il faut pour avoir un bel avenir pour nos municipalités, mais surtout pour nos jeunes familles qui ont besoin des maisons dans lesquelles ils vivent. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. We'll go to the next question.
Thank you.
Mr. Poilievre, Michael Couture with CTV News. The campaign director for Ontario Premier Doug Ford, Corey Tonique, says you sound like Donald Trump. So if conservatives are saying that you sound too much like Donald Trump, how can you possibly stand up to the U.S. president?
Well, I'm the only one who will stand up to the U.S. president. I see that the president wants the Liberals back in because after a decade, a lost Liberal decade, with costs and crime up and the economy down under the American thumb, the president would love nothing more to keep the Liberals in power so that he can keep abusing our economy and taking advantage of Canada. The question Canadians will have to answer is whether they think the Liberals are owed a fourth mandate after they drove up costs and crime and weakened our economy, or whether it's time to put Canada first with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, green-light projects, build homes, bring home the jobs so that we can stand up to the Americans from a position of strength.
Thank you. We'll go to the next question.
David Aiken, Global News. Good afternoon, and thank you
David.
to our Alamo hosts for being such gracious hosts and helpful to us as well. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to ask about some conservatives who are upset in this election. This is my 7th campaign. I've never had so many calls from grassroots conservatives upset At head office is choosing the candidates. In St. John, the president of the EDA quit. In Penticton, just a couple of days ago, 4 candidates running. No, head office says it's going to be this person. They say frustrated beyond belief. In Richmond, you could have had Kenny Chu or Wai Young. Nope, head office appointed somebody else. And then there's Mike DeYoung in Abbotsford. People are scratching their heads. Ian Black sat beside Mike in Gordon Campbell's cabinet, but Mike didn't make the cut. So the question is, why, on behalf of conservative grassroots members, why can't conservative grassroots choose their own candidate? And what was so defective about Mike DeYoung?
Thanks very much, David. And I know that you've always been such a great champion of grassroots conservatives. So thank you for,
just made fun of him.
Claiming to be their spokesman. Listen, the reality is that conservatives are going to have solid candidates right across the country who are going to put Canada first. We're going to put Canada first by bringing home our jobs, axing taxes, building homes, and breaking the dependence that the Liberals have forced on Canada relative to the United States of America. We will have strong candidates who are small business people, doctors, local philanthropic champions, and other people who are legends in the communities that they represent. They will be strong. They will be standing up for the workers and the people in this country who...
Yeah, the Liberals are doing the same thing, and they're not being questioned by it. You don't see Mark Carney being questioned. Like, I'm actually pretty unimpressed with CBC lately. They're in full attack mode. Since he doubled down on defunding them, they won't say one good thing about him, and they are just on full-on attacking Pierre mode, and they're just not even paying attention to Carney right now.
Left behind after the lost Liberal decade. And you know, the question that they will be asking on the doorstep, David, is whether after the lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime, and with our economy down under the American thumb, do the Liberals deserve a 4th term in power? Or is it time to put Canada first for a change with a new Conservative government that will make our country strong enough to stand on its own 2 feet and stand up to the Americans? Thank you very much.
Thank you. This concludes the event today.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup.
That's it, eh? All right, that was a pretty short announcement. There's a lot of French in that. But anyways, yeah, so to me, like, yeah, what happened with Carney's writing? Like, I don't know. Like, and it sounds like Mike, I feel like this is going to happen because they want to win, right? They're just going to be like, oh, this guy's not very popular, so we're going to put this other guy who's more popular. Like, I get it. Like, I don't think it's a big, I wasn't really questioning the Sharia Andra thing either. I think I kind of expected a lot of parties to be doing that kind of stuff, and we were going to see a lot of that happen as soon as the election started. So I just think it's, yeah, I don't see why that's such a big deal. Like this is what I mean, right? Is I feel like when it comes down to this election, everyone's focusing on such minor details that don't even really matter in some cases. I feel like everyone's like, even about like Carney's finances, like, yeah, I get it. It does matter to a degree, but he called an election. We all wanted the election. He did what we wanted. Why don't we just take the W and try and move on, right? Like, that's where I'm at with this. I'm like, I'm confident the Conservatives are probably going to win this election, regardless of what the polls say, because I don't think Carney's got the salt to be able to stick it through an entire entire election campaign, right? But anyways, that's all the time I got for now, guys. I'll be back later. We're going to be covering Pierre Poilievre's rally as well later tonight. It's probably going to start around 7 p.m. PST, but I'll start streaming probably around 6:30 p.m. PST, and we'll probably cover some news going on prior to, and then we'll be segueing over there. Saul is kind of dealing with some stuff, so he won't be on tonight's live stream either. So it's just all conservative for you guys. So anyone who doesn't want conservative corner, then you might want to not tune in tonight because that's what it's going to be, because we're following Pierre Poilievre. He's who I'm rooting for this election, and I think he's got what it takes to win. But anyways, thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you guys later tonight. And yeah, reminder to check out our podcast, the weekly episode on the Grounded TV channel, as well as some clips of the podcast we got on the channel as well that I've been releasing throughout the week if you want to see more of me and Saul talking. So anyways, thanks, guys, and have a good day. See you later, and stay